Hello, welcome back. In a Palestinian town near Ramallah, a man unites Fatah, Hamas and Israelis in an unarmed movement to save his village from destruction. The town is Budrus, and the man is Ayed Morrar, a Palestinian community organizer who used peaceful means to push the Israeli border fence away from his village. Budrus is now an award-winning documentary by director Julia Bacha, a Brazilian filmmaker who's been focusing on the Middle East for the past few years. Julia is here with us now. Before we talk to her though, let's watch a clip from the film.
بهذا اليوم ننهي مسيرتنا بهذه الصورة المشرقة، وكذلك نوجه التحية للإسرائيليين الذين وقفوا أيضا معنا في هذا اليوم، ومن أيام من قبل أيضا وقفوا معنا نفس الوقفة في دفاعنا عن أرضنا وعرضنا.
إنه إحنا كنا نسمع أن هناك إسرائيليين ينادون يعني بالسلام مع الفلسطينيين، لكن ما رأيناه اندفاعهم الحقيقي. إن أنا أرى الإسرائيلي حقيقة يعني يدافع عني ويحاول أن يحميني يعني من جنود الاحتلال.
Julia, so good for you to come in and talk to us. Tell us about the film.
We're telling the story of this village, Budrus, that was the first one to successfully unite different political parties from a grassroots level. Hundreds of Israelis joined the demonstrations, and women were on the front lines. And we really wanted to tell a story about what people can do when they actually unite and use nonviolent strategies.
Did it surprise you how people of different factions, different religions worked together?
I think what was really interesting was that they managed to find a common goal, and despite their different beliefs in general issues, political issues, there was a clear goal on what they wanted to achieve, and that led to relationships being built that are still alive today.
So how did you come across Ayed? How did you get into this story?
I work for an organization called Just Vision, and we research stories of Palestinians and Israeli civilians who are trying to end the conflict using nonviolent means. And we wanted to tell a story of success that would inspire people to get involved. When we started talking to people on the ground, everybody directed me to Ayed. And Ayed himself is a very humble man, and he kept saying, I'm not worthy of a documentary film, but he kept being mentioned by everybody. So when we went into the village and met his 15-year-old daughter, Iltissam, who is incredibly charismatic and who was the one who launched the women's contingent, that kind of closed the deal for me, that they were the story to tell.
Yeah, I guess when everybody has that reaction, you know you've found the winner. How long did it take to put this together? Because you know it's quite a long journey that these people go on.
Absolutely. We have footage from the very first day, which was in December 2003, and we shot over 6 years. So the final shooting happened last year. So it was a very long process, but we counted with activists who were carrying camera on the ground, and they were not actually inclined to make a documentary. They wanted to document human rights violations in case they wanted to use it in court and to make it available to the press. And so we really got very close to the people who were in the region and in this case, and we were able to talk to both members of the border police. So one of our main characters is Yasmin Levy, who was the female officer stationed in the village during the demonstrations, and with the Israeli army spokesman, Ron Spilman. So we have both the point of view of the Palestinian villagers and the Israeli border police and army.
These can be such complicated, such controversial issues. How did the Israeli audiences respond to the film?
We are actually going to have our first public screening in Israel in a few months, but we have done a lot of target screenings during the editing process, and there's been a very wide range of reactions. People are mostly very surprised and in many ways glad to hear the stories, because ultimately they've never had even heard about it. So even if politically they disagree with what was being done, they were surprised that the mainstream media had not provided them with that information.
As journalists or filmmakers, I guess the goal is always to try and make a difference with something that we do. Do you think that you managed to do that with this film?
I think the first intention of the movie is for it to stand by itself as a work of art, for people to both learn something from it and be entertained by it, and the editing was very much focused on that. We wanted to be able for people to watch it in the theaters like they would watch any other movie. But of course, we would be incredibly pleased if the film inspires people to actually want to learn more, to get more involved, and maybe even participate.
We've been talking a lot about Israel and the Palestinians on this week's programme. There are a lot of people that are not very hopeful. Your film, though, I guess shows us a different side of that. Do you feel positive, happy about the potential for a hopeful future there?
That's a very difficult question, of course. I mean, I think the current situation is very dire. It's a very hard moment right now, but I do believe that what inspires me are the people. I think people on the ground are often overlooked. There's a lot of focus on the media, on the political level, and on violent actions, and those fluctuate a lot. So if you're going to depend on those aspects of the conflict, then you're going to be mostly pessimistic because there isn't much going on in the political level to be hopeful about. But on the ground, if people look beyond the headlines, they will see that there is a growing movement of people coming together, of Palestinians and Israelis who believe in a shared future in the region and who are working strategically now, not just out of naivete, but actually thinking through the ways to get out of the current stalemate.
Julia Bacha, it's wonderful of you to come and join us on the programme. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks. This week, to the man with the job of telling the United Nations what's going on in North Korea, revealed that the country's government runs a state of fear, with a record on human rights that puts the country in a category of its own. Vitit Muntarbhorn is the UN Special Rapperteur, who has been witnessing the human rights situation in North Korea for the past 6 years. But even he is not actually allowed in the country himself. So, how bad is the situation in this very secretive state? Well, Vitit Muntarbhorn joins me now from Geneva. How bad is the situation in North Korea now?
It's a very harrowing situation, and quite a few instances which are actually very horrific also. This whole range of abuses which have been taking place for so long, ranging from distortion of food distribution to public executions to intimidate people, to punishments which are meted out against families if one person falls foul with the authorities, all kinds of violence against people, including women, children, beyond. And this is why 6 years ago this mandate was established by the UN to monitor the situation.
But you're not allowed into the country, so presumably all of the information that comes to you is hearsay. So how do you know that what you're being told you can trust?
Well, actually, it's not all hearsay at all. It's based upon a variety of sources of information. First of all, I have full access to UN agencies that have a physical presence in the country, so I touch base with them all the time. Secondly, I have access to a whole variety of sources from the NGO sector who have links with the country of origin. And thirdly, I do refugee interviews, particularly those who left the country directly. So I've interviewed, I would say, over 100 people, mainly women and children who've come out directly from DPRK. And very sadly, of course, the situation, the negativity of all of this has been corroborated by so many sources. And my humble task is to make sure that this is visible to the world and to try to mobilize the world community to take action to influence the country concerned to be constructive towards its people.
You've been doing this job for 6 years now. In that 6 years, do you think the situation has gotten worse or gotten better? How do you think it is now?
I always try to be fair to them, so whatever constructive developments take place during the year I highlight, and I do 2 reports here for the UN, one for the Human Rights Council in Geneva, where I am now, and the other one for the GA, the General Assembly in New York. I think over the past 6 years there have been sort of nominal improvements in terms of various legislative changes. For example, the criminal law was adjusted a few years ago to incorporate the principle that if crimes are not stipulated expressly in the law, you can't criminalize people. So that's welcomed in terms of certainty in the criminal law. However, we know that there's so many abuses, even though malpractices are prohibited. For example, torture is prohibited in the law, but we have a lot of information on torture, political prison camps galore in terms of huge camps, and all the other malpractices that I've listed already, as well as others. So the practical implementation, so to speak, of human rights is actually very much lacking, with very pervasive violence and violations affecting a very broad group of people who, of course, don't belong to the elite, but who are marginalized in the process.
Can you paint a picture for us? What is life like for the ordinary people of North Korea living in this repressive state?
Well, yesterday I was with a witness who was recounting what she went through in terms of trying to leave the country several times. You're not allowed to leave the country without an exit visa, so you're punished. And she was sent back, and then she was put into prison for a year plus, tortured. She was pregnant with a child, an ethnic father from another country, and the child actually died in the process of the imprisonment. So for lack of care and for reasons of neglect and even misdeeds on the part of the authorities. And then she escaped again and ultimately en route finally found safe haven. But along the way, of course, was also held in immigration detention center before she finally arrived in the final destination country. So that's just one of the examples. So what we do witness very much, particularly from refugee testimonies, is multiple violence against them, especially if they've been on the road for so long. And many of them, if they're sent back, and several are sent back several times, they are punished more and more, especially if they have links with various religious groups, because there's also persecution of religious minorities in the country of origin.
In this age of the internet, of Hollywood movies, how aware are the people of North Korea of what the outside world is actually like?
The society is very closed because it's a top-down process of a non-democratic country, and you're not allowed to own computers without permission. Until recently, mobiles were not permitted, but now they are permitted in Pyongyang, but they're not permitted near the border areas. Radio and TV are pre-tuned to government programs, and they have squads, they have inspectors that raid homes to see whether people have adjusted them. It's a crime to watch South Korean videos or to read Chinese books and so on. So there are all these possible clampdowns on people, of course, there may be laxity in terms of implementation because we have a lot of reports of bribery also. But the state tries very much to control the media, the information base, and so on. While, of course, there are indications that people are trying to access information from outside. For example, we have information that people are using mobiles from neighboring countries near the border areas, as well as using USV to connect computers. But generally, these are all illegal acts according to the law, and the government clamps down very strongly against them, including at times even executions against people who are caught in the web of these so-called clandestine activities as classified by the authorities.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's it for this edition. Join Sir David again next week for another edition of Frost Over the World.